Well, hi there. Welcome to ChessBase Workshop for another week. My name's Steve Lopez. Thank you for clicking on that link and joining us. We've been looking at opening keys in the last couple of ChessBase workshops using ChessBase 10, as you see before you here. What are opening keys? Opening keys, sorry, I just bumped the microphone. Opening keys are indexes. It's like in the back of a book. When you go to the back of a book, look something up, and an index gives you a page number. In fact, that applies to chess books. I've been looking at a couple here recently where you go into the back of the book and it says index of openings. You look up an opening like Roy Lopez Exchange and you get page numbers, and you go to that page and lo and behold, there's a game that uses the Roy Lopez Exchange. Well, there are no pages in the database. It's just a lot of games. The way you find games, and there's a whole bunch of different ways to find games by opening, but one easy way to do it is by using an opening key. As a quick review, the way you get to an opening key is double click on a database icon and you get your game list. Go to openings, the openings tab up here at the top, and there are your opening keys. And in the case of Joachim Zunke's super key, you can basically look down the row here, find E4. We're looking for the Roy Lopez Exchange, remember. Then we want E5, open games. Then to get to sub keys of this key, we click on the plus sign. We find knight F3. Then we find knight C6. And then we have to look down farther. Bishop B5 and A6, and then it says exchange variation. We have arrived, friends. We click on the little plus sign here and we see where bishop takes the knight, and then we have different variations here. We just scroll down to the one that we're looking for, whether we want the D4 classical, Fischer's castling. We have all different sub-variations, and you just keep drilling down until you find the line that you want. And when you look at a bar here, you click on a opening that does not have a plus sign next to it. You look over here, there's the number of games, and lo and behold, there are 55 games that use this particular variation. They're all listed in the lower pane. Double-click on the game to load it and play through it. Very simple. Last week we talked about what to do if you have a database that does not have an opening key. You click on that openings tab and you get 4 choices. We looked at 2 of them last week, and actually we looked at 3 because we did look at select key, and I said I wasn't going to cover that. And you know what? About halfway through that video last week while I was recording it, I thought, you know what, we really ought to. We ought to look at this. I very seldom use this, but last week I thought, yeah, I want to try something different with this. Let me show you the deal here. What I have is a database of games, and you've seen this before in ChessBase Workshop. This is a database of about 12,000 games from the 1800s. I'm very fond of the old classical games, the old romantic era, all the swashbuckling, gambeteering, and sacrifices. It's great stuff. I love to play through it. So I made a separate database of these games as an example database for some stuff we were doing in early ChessBase Workshops. But when you double click on it, you go to openings, we don't have a key. Now, we installed the small key last week, and it turns out a whole bunch of games fall through the cracks. There are a bunch of games that don't get classified into specific keys because there aren't that many keys. There are a lot of keys with verbal names of openings, and then there are a few sub-keys with verbal names of openings. But then there's some oddball games that just don't get classified into any of those. So then we installed the big key. But what happens when you install the big key is you get a key based on the Encyclopedia of Chess Openings, done by the Chess Informant people. And I don't mean to insult my friends in Belgrade, but I have to tell you that sometimes I find the Encyclopedia of Chess Openings opening system, the alphanumeric system, a little bit confusing because it jumps around. D-pawn openings can be found in Volume A, Volume D, or Volume E. So it gets a little bit quirky sometimes. So instead I like to use Joachim Zunke's super key we were just looking at that's in the mega database, but that's not the default key that gets installed when you click install big key. So let's say I want the super key. How do I get it? That's what the select key button is for. Now we're going to go through this step by step. It's not hard, but I've been told that I speak very quickly and blow through these videos very fast. which is unusual because I'm from the South. We usually do things slow. We usually take our time, as I've recently been reminded. A friend of mine from North Carolina tried to teach me this a while back, and I did not take the lesson very well, which is that unless it's life and death, there's no need to panic, there's no need to rush. Slow and steady wins the race. So I'm going to show you how to pick a particular opening key and apply it to a database that does not have an opening key. In this case, this particular case, it's Joachim Zunke's super key that we were just looking at. Now, what you need to know to copy that key to a database that doesn't have one is where the super key is located. Well, we know that it's already appended to Megadatabase 2010, as we saw a moment ago. I'll show you again. Double click, click openings, go to the top. There's super key. This is the key that we want. How do we find out where those files are located? Because we're going to need to know where on the hard drive, where on the computer those files are. Very simple. You right click on the database that has that key, in this case Megadatabase 2010, right click, go to properties, and there at the very top is the path to those files. C drive, users folder, user, documents, ChessBase, bases, and then Megadatabase 2010. In this case it'll be .ckO and CPO. Well, how am I going to remember all that? You may be thinking. In which case I need to remind you that the Great Spirit put wood and graphite on this earth for a reason. To make pencils and paper, you need to write this down if you can't remember it. As I have done, you can't see this, but I'm holding a piece of paper in my hand right now that has that path on it that I wrote down in anticipation of doing this video. So now we know where the key resides. It is in the bases folder, in the ChessBase folder, in the documents folder, in the user folder, in the users folder on the C drive. So now we know that. We'll cancel out of this. We go back to our classical database. We double click on it. We click the openings tab, and there we have our choices. This time, instead of installing a default key, either the small one or the big one, this time we will select an existing key that is neither of these two. The super key that's attached to Megadatabase. Click select key. The cool part about this is that since the ChessBase folder is a default when you install ChessBase, it already jumped through the user documents part, took me right to the ChessBase folder. So having written this down, I know the subfolder that I want to go to of ChessBase is bases. So we double click on that folder. And by the way, if you don't know anything about folders and files, you need to learn it, okay? And I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but the fact of the matter is a computer is not a toaster. A computer is not something where you plug it in, throw a piece of bread in it, slam the thing down, and it works. Believe it or not, no one comes out of the womb knowing how to use a toaster. You did have to learn it at some point. Same thing with your computer. It's a tool. You need to learn to use it, and there are a ton of online Windows tutorials. You don't even have to spend money on this, although buying books is cool. I like to get a print book with everything I need in it every time a new version of Windows comes out. But if you don't want to go that route, go online and check out some Windows tutorials. This is very basic stuff that everybody who uses a computer needs to learn. So hopefully I'm not talking past you here. Hopefully you've already done this kind of thing. And if that's the case, fine, we move on from there. Anyway, I went to the bases folder. Notice that this file select dialog is looking for CKO files. They are opening keys. That's where the keys are located, CKO. Okay? So it's not showing me all the Megadatabase files. It's only showing me the stuff that's in the bases folder, the CKO files of existing databases. I've got the ChessBase Lite database in there, as well as the Megadatabase 2010. This is the super key. Notice, you remember, we were looking at Megadatabase 2010, looking at the opening keys. That was Zunke's super key. That's what we want. So we click on that, or we can double and then click open, or we can just double click on this right now. Either way, click once on it, click open, and now the program will do its work. Takes a minute or two, and there we are. And look at this. This is really cool. Let me resize this window. Scroll to the top. Super key, Joachim Zunke, 12,326 games have been classified. And now we can go in to particular openings like Aliekin's Defense, for example. There are only 9 games in the database using Aliekin's Defense. Why? Well, these are 1800s games. The reason it's called Aliekin's Defense, I'm not going to be so bold to say Aliekin invented it, but he's the guy that really popularized it. So it didn't get played a lot in the 1800s. That's why I went down here, by the way. I'm very curious about this. So there are 9 games in Aliekin's Defense played between 1830 and 1899. So we click on the little plus sign and we get more openings. Notice there are a ton of zeros here, and we talked about that before. This is one of those interesting cases where 12,000 games in a database is really too big a database for the small key, but too small a database for the big key or the super key. But I don't care. I want the super key on this database so I can go to specific variations. And here we go. There are three games in this particular variation. Clicking on the plus sign, it scrolls down, and now here's a variation that has 1 game, and it pops open. Here we go. Double click on it. There we are, Karl Walbrot and Simon Alapin. And we can play through and see how these guys, and by the way, there's a transposition here in case you missed it. This is really cool. Wow, that's interesting right there. Here we're going to go for a King's Gambit. And after a bunch of moves, we wind up with an Aliekin Defense. Well, how does that happen? I ask you. Well, transpositions are part and parcel of chess. Every one of these keys has an opening position attached to it. You can't see it, it's in the background. You can get to it though, I'll show you here in a second. But if you want to see the opening position that is connected to this key, you right click, show positions, and there we are. This is the position it's looking for. Any game that comes to this position with black to move, okay, that's why black is at the bottom when you look at this. Any game that comes to this position with black to move gets filed away under this particular key. That's why what starts out as a King's Gambit winds up falling under Aliekin's Defense. It's pretty cool the way that works. This catches transpositions. That's the beauty of large keys. That's why every game gets classified in either the big key or the super key, is because there isn't going to be an opening that doesn't have a position in this key someplace. So we'll click cancel on that. We don't need to fool with it. And we have other things. We just keep scrolling down, just looking for games that have, or looking for keys that have games attached. This one has 4 games attached. We can unzip it. Boom. We have a whole pile of zeros, but down here we have a 1. Joseph Blackburn. I like Joseph Blackburn. If I remember correctly, do I remember the story correctly? Didn't he throw Steinitz out a window once? I don't know. I don't remember. I got to go look that up. But I remember Joseph Blackburn was not the nicest guy, but he was a great chess player. And here's one of his games in which he wins in an Aliekin Defense, transposed. Anyway, we can play through it at our leisure. So that's how you assign an existing key that's not the big key or the small key, the default keys. That's how you assign an existing key to a database. And as we've seen before, if for some reason you decide that you don't like this key, you can get rid of it. And I'll cover that one more time slowly just to make sure everybody gets it. And that's this. First of all, it's the classical database. We want to get rid of the key. So click on a different database. That's so ChessBase releases it. Notice, again, with the newer ChessBases from ChessBase 8 onward, when you click on a particular database, you get a game list down here, right in the database desktop. So you need to click on a different database so that ChessBase will let go of these files so you can delete them. Then you can just go to Windows Explorer. Here we have the CKO and CPO files. Notice these files are huge, by the way. The super key is a really, really big file, way bigger than the small key. It's funny because the size of the key, 27,090 kilobytes, actually dwarfs the size of the whole rest of the database put together. That's why you generally don't use a really, really big opening key on a really, really small database. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, highlight the 2 files. CKO and CPO are the ones that you want to highlight. Notice, too, you have to hold down the control. You click on one of them, and to get the other one, you hold down the control key on the keyboard, which I can't show you. But you hold down a control key, click on the other file. You'll notice that they're both checked. We can now right click, select delete. Yes, I want them to go to the recycle bin. Say goodbye. Say goodnight, Gracie. And then we just go back to ChessBase. And when we go to classical, the key is gone. But that's how you use select key. First, you find out where the key is. If it's a key attached to an existing database, right click, select properties, and there's the information right across the top, the exact path to those files. Write it down if you can't remember it. Okay, that's why there's paper and pencil. Then you go to classical or whatever, whatever the name of your database is where you want a key. Double click, openings tab, select key, then go to whatever folder it is where that key is. You can select it there, click open, wait a few moments, and there it is. And now it's attached to that database, and all the games have been sorted into the proper keys. Now there is another alternative here. You've got the big key, the small key, or any other existing key. What would you think the fourth alternative would be? Install empty key was the fourth button. Why would you install an empty key? Because you're going to do some construction work. You're going to build a key from scratch. Sounds interesting. And it does take a passel of work to do it, but it can be done. Next time around in ChessBase Workshop, we're going to start showing you how to construct your own opening key from scratch, from the ground up. It's pretty cool, and we'll have to take that one pretty slow. That may be a two video exegesis, a 2-video ordeal, but we'll get through it. We'll try to take it slow and show you how to do it in a very slow, methodical, logical manner so that anyone, literally anyone, can do this. If you can play chess, you can build an opening key. It's very simple. Next time around the ChessBase Workshop, we will begin the process of showing that to you. Until then, well, you know what to do. Have fun.